honest with you. This is my first podcast in a while, so I might be rusty with just questions, that sort of stuff.
You just let it roll, man, and it's easy.
Go take it easy on me. Take it easy on me. Well, yeah, man. Like, just thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm here with Zac Small, and you're someone that I got connected through a friend of ours, I guess on Twitter, connected me to you, and your page is just super awesome. Your Twitter page, kind of the stuff that you're doing. So thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited for this.
No, absolutely, Pat. And have me on to talk fatherhood, talk family, talk what it is we're doing. I think these discussions are needed to be had because, like you said, a friend of yours introduced you to me, and now we're talking about this. The next guy might hear it, and all of a sudden he's got these new ideas to bring himself to the next level.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So now let's get into a bit of background. I know you're married, you're a father to two, a coach, a veteran photographer. Yeah, well, kind of tell me what am I missing here? What am I not giving the audience that they might not know about you, and then also myself.
No, you nailed it, man. That's it. I'm just a dad and coach, and we're doing our thing. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
awesome.
No, so I joined the military, and during a very successful career, I realized I wanted to be an involved father, and so going through that, I left the military, and I've kind of dedicated myself towards sharing the art, the process I'm using through fatherhood. I'm an ambitious guy. There are a lot of things that I want to do. And so while doing that and leaving the military, well, I lost my brotherhood. And so I created an online community. So I'm also running the Fraternity of Excellence. That's a private men's group where men are coming together for their various reasons. One of them is fatherhood, but men are there for finances, fitness, the works as a man or as a man. And then recently I've taken up photography. So I'm out here taking pictures. I run the Daily Draft newsletter, which is my Substack. So I'm writing there. It's pretty much like the Renaissance man. It's like I'm just doing all the things that I can do. And it's not one of those things like I'm a jack of all trades but a master of none. I'm trying to master all of these, to include being a husband, to include being a father.
Right.
And so I've dedicated my life to that. So what you see on Twitter, what you see through the pictures that I take are the words that I write. That's me finding my way through life, sharing the story, and making sure that others are taking the time to appreciate it as well. Because I don't think we have enough people out here being light, and sharing positive messages and how to be better in your family. There's a lot of go with the flow. There's a lot of focusing on chaos. And that's not what's going to get you to where you want to go. And so I have found a way just through the various events of my life to just become a guy that wants to do that, and so I am.
Right. That's amazing. One of the reasons that I was motivated to get this podcast going, I was in a discussion with a family member of mine, and we were just talking about just role models in this age and this time, and it the discussion focused on, you know, like, is there one good role model to have? Like, is there one person out there, especially for men? Is there a masculine figure out there that really represents just all the values and without any like negatives or anything? I mean, it's such a tough task and that's such a large thing to be, but something that we were just wrestling with is like this man is great, but he has, maybe these flaws, or this person is great in these flaws. And I realized that, maybe there's not just one person, but by more people striving to be that role model, to be that one person by having these conversations that, you can kind of slowly just create a culture, especially for men, for dads, like you said, where, you're being built up, where you're seeing good examples, whether it's in media, news, that sort of stuff, podcasts online, where there are good examples of just what it means to be a husband, a dad, a man in this life. And I mean, dude, you're like exactly what you were saying, just you're all in and that's what you're going for. I mean, that's why I was so excited for this call. I was like, this Zac is exactly what I was talking about in that discussion of someone who's just saying, like, I just striving and trying to have that. So that's really cool.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, that's the thing. We love things to be simple. It'd be really easy to be like, yeah, obviously that one dude there is the guy for all of us. That's not how
Right.
that works. Like, that's not how real life works. And that's the problem, though. People see social media. We've had technology help simplify our lives to where we just want to press a button and have a nice home brewed experience espresso. But you don't want to grind the beans so that they're super fresh. You don't want to make sure the water's at the right temperature so you're not boiling it too high or too low. Like, the process is what's going to get you that perfect espresso that you want. But what you actually want is the comfort that comes with pressing a button and then boom, a Keurig. And that's not how it works. So there's not going to be one dude you can be like, that's the guy, be like him, and you're going to win. No, what you have to do is find the process. And the process is much uglier. It's much more time consuming, and it also forces you to accept the fact that nobody's perfect. I'm a man with flaws. You're a man with flaws. Yet here we are trying to be better. Does that not make us the men that we're speaking about? Because the role model is the man who's out there trying to be his best, with flaws included, because he's a human being. And so it's your features and your flaws. It's your ability to recognize your flaws, not hide them or overlook them, and then just make them a part of your story. And all of a sudden, all the problems of my past, like I'm sober. For a really quick example, like there's a reason I'm sober. And it's
Right.
not because I'm like, hey, I'm awesome with alcohol. It's because alcohol wasn't good for me. That's a flaw. Other people can drink just fine. I couldn't. Am I a bad man though? No. I recognized I had an issue and I addressed it. That's what made me a good man. I saw a problem in my life. I addressed it. And now here I am going forward, helping others do the same. And so to me, if you're perfect, dude, there's a reason that they gave Superman kryptonite. Because if he was perfect, well, that's not real. I can't relate to that. I'm not going to root for that guy. Like, it's not even hard for him. He's perfect. But if that
Right.
guy had to overcome something, there's something that can destroy that dude, and he's got to fight against it, and he's got to control himself. That's something I can relate to because as a man, I have to find ways to overcome issues. I've got to come back, when I get knocked down. I've got to succeed and have victory well. I've got to win well, and so all these things, that's what makes the role model that you were talking about or looking for. It's necessary that they have dark spots to them and scars and flaws because that's the only way that we can even relate as something we could become.
Right. Yeah. Wow. I love it. That,
Speaking of
just
espresso, I had mine this morning, so I'm ready to go,
there
man.
you go. You're just fired up. That's huge. I wish you had been there for the discussion. I mean, that would have been fantastic. I was definitely losing the discussion. So, dude, next time it's happening, I'm just gonna play them this clip and be like, this is what I'm
Get a phone a
talking about.
friend. Hold on.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to say. It's really cool just the way you mentioned Superman and Kryptonite because he's one that I don't relate to him as much just because, like you said, like he's too high. It's not enough challenges. And then there's always a way. I'm always in my head, I'm like, he's Superman. He's gonna beat everyone. There's no debate about it. It's not Captain America who's constantly getting knocked down and getting back up. Right. But then whenever they pull out the Superman movie, he's always there's always that losing and that struggle. So I just love how you related that to the flaws of real role models and how everyone, they have those flaws, but it's not the flaws that doesn't make them a role model. It's because of that and the striving to be better, overcome them, knowing that no one's ever going to be perfect. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things too, when you're looking at, Batman, Superman, Captain America, all these guys, we never say Captain Planet, but he was a good one too. But you look at all these guys and they're out there doing this thing. Everybody loves to point out their origin story as to like what made them. Everybody loves to point out all the things they went through and how they overcame it. Everybody loves to look at them and point to them as if they're doing something you couldn't do. And so when you're telling that story, I'm like, dude, I'm Superman in my story. Like you cannot beat me. I will not stop. And that's my mindset. That's how I think about myself. I know Superman isn't real. Obviously, I'm not saying I'm having these fantasies where I can jump off my deck and fly. But what I'm saying is when you look at this, like when I look at myself, dude, I think I am a monster in the best of ways. And I think every man should think that. Every man should think of themselves as like, yeah, this is a great story. Let me show you how your dad lives it. You're talking about Man of Steel. Look, I go and I do this and I make sure I take care of that. With this one hand, I can throw the hardest punch you've ever felt, and in this hand, I can hold a baby. That is a
Right.
hero, man. You can sit there and, take your photos for the press, and you can sit there and fight the bad guys. If something goes knock at that door right now, or in the middle of the night, or at any point, it's not my wife or kids who are going to get up and go after it. Maybe my son. He's 14. He's becoming a man of his own.
There you
But that's
go.
me. I'm going to see what just happened there. I'm the guy who's going to save this family. And when things hit the fan, I've been working to not swear on my podcast recently. So when
All
stuff hits
right.
the
I
fan,
like it when stuff hits the
stuff
fan.
hits the fan, my family doesn't freak. They look to me. They look to the hero of the family. And I wish more family men would stop offloading that responsibility and that sort of not worship, but that just like looking up to and idolizing all these other men and start looking at themselves along with their family, saying, hey, you can be that man in their story. You should be that person. You're real. You're here. You can do all those things.
Right. Amen. Amen. I feel like I should be
Let's
saying,
go, baby. That's why
dude,
we're doing this
that's awesome.
podcast, to start inspiring
Hell
some other
yeah.
people.
Now, talk to me about so Fraternity of Excellence. I looked at, obviously I'm seeing what you're posting on Twitter, and then I went through kind of, dude, it looks amazing. Now, you started that a few years ago, is that correct? Fraternity of Excellence?
I co-founded the Fraternity of Excellence with Craig James. We worked together, and on January 1st, 2018, we launched that community.
Very cool. And what was you briefly mentioned it, a veteran, and you had your brotherhood, and then you're out of the army and you lose the brotherhood. Was it something to keep the brotherhood that you had before, or was there a different, like a motivation, that motivation with it, and then something else moving along from it? What led you to say this is something that's needed for you, for other men out there, and then push you to start it?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I have to set the record straight. It was the Navy. You can't go around
Navy,
telling
sorry,
people I was in
my
the Army,
apologies.
man.
Sorry,
That
man.
it's out there. We're gonna have issues. They're gonna love it.
Oh,
No, looking at
big
that.
slip up.
Here's the thing. When I am like I said, a motivated, driven man. I wasn't always like this. I became this way when I joined the military. Prior to in high school, before then, I was insecure. I just had a lot of self doubt issues. I wasn't motivated, and I was on a very destructive path. To join the military, and that really got my mind straight. It's the man that you know today. All the stuff that I've written since then has stemmed from that decision point. I was a confident me, well, even when I say insecure, like I played football, very confident. If you told me to do a job, I was going to go do the job the best I could do. So like I had the skill sets and belief in myself in that sense, but I didn't think I was worth love. I didn't think I'd be successful, like things like that. And so it's funny, like very confident in the football field, very confident when it came to physical events, but very insecure every single other place.
Right, right.
Military fixed that. And to drive that point home, when I left the military, I left that as instructor of the year, sailor of the year. I was on a really fast path. I was advancing, like I was doing exceptionally well, and I was very proud of that. And I just walked away. And so to me, that speaks volumes to the character of a man who can say, you're having success in one business, but if it's not aligned with your goals, it's time to step off.
Right,
Family is the cornerstone of me, of Zach, of everything that I am. Family is the cornerstone of that. And the military was taking me away from that. I
right,
could not be a good dad and a good husband. I mean, I could not be a good dad and a good sailor or a good husband. I had to pick family or the military because I
right,
was out there volunteering for every deployment. I was volunteering for every school. I was volunteering to go because in the military, that's number one, country. And so I put it in that order, and I realized I didn't want to not know my kids. I didn't want
hmm
to miss more events. I missed my son's first birthday, first steps, a lot of milestones there. And that he doesn't know that. He'll never remember that, but I do. And I was like, that's not what I want. And so at the apex, I dropped the mic, retired on top, and left. And when I did that, I found out a part of what made me so successful was having other men that I could work with and jive with and swap notes with and lean on. And I lost that because the brotherhood carries on. And we all know this when we leave. You can say, like, yeah, I'll call you. Yeah, I'll see you. The reality is, if you're part of a fraternal order like that, police, firefighters, military, obviously, college sports, high school sports, when you graduate or you leave or you move on, you retire, whatever it is, they have to keep going. The fight doesn't stop. And I can't get mad at them for moving on with whoever took my spot because
right,
the mission goes on. But I was left there trying to like look around. I'm not going to be the fat veteran who wears all veteran gear and talks about how I used to be somebody, and then I'll be 60 years old. I used to be in the Navy, I joined 2006 and I did all these things. Like, bro, what have you done since? That I refuse to let that be me.
right,
And so I started looking around. I realized the men in my local network, they didn't have it, the X factor. They didn't have it. So I went online. I didn't really find it. And then I just started creating it. I started talking about what was important to me. I started talking about what I needed, what I was seeing, what was working for me. I created a program called 31 Days to Masculinity, where we kind of, as a team, we worked together for 31 days to build ourselves back to being the best man. And I had done that off seeing what was missing, but I was missing it. And so I was able to lead men. I was able to motivate people. I was able to connect, and people resonated with what I was saying. Craig James understood how to get a system that could build like a home for us. And so he built the community. And so basically we merged together our skill sets, and that's where FW was born. I needed that brotherhood. I still need that brotherhood. I've got people in my innermost network that I call and talk to every single day. I am a pack animal. I can go out. I can do great things alone. I'm very fine. I can eat by myself. I can like. Some people
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
uncomfortable having a coffee. I know that's weird to say, but I had a whole discussion where people are very uncomfortable eating at a restaurant by themselves. I can go to a bar or a table, whatever, sit, and I'm happy with my thoughts. Usually, I'll bring a laptop and I'll edit, but I'm very cool just being lost in my head. And when I was able to get out there and connect with others, though, that's how I found the ability to really bring me to the next level. And how do I know I'm a strong man or a smart man or a good man unless I'm around other men? I can't say I'm a tough guy because I'm stronger than my wife and kids. Like that's not how that works. None of
Right.
us can.
Yeah.
If you're not measuring yourself to other men who are successful and objectively achieving great things, then you don't know where the hell you rank. You don't know how you're doing as a man. And so the Fraternity of Excellence was the inevitable outcome of that because I needed it. And I was either going to form it there, I was going to form it at home. Like I needed the Brotherhood. And that became the outlet because it was able to transcend physical proximity. And I was able to connect with people who think the way I think. And they saw a lot of what I was doing. I'm able to intimately every single week, day in and day out, give them everything that I'm doing to help them level up and go. And since then we've evolved. So now I'm partnered with Anthony Miglierino, who runs peacefulfathers.com.
Right.
And then we've got a team leader, Colton. And so the three of us, I've got a team leader that's taking care of the guys. Anthony and I are swapping and controlling our roles to make sure the system works best. And the men are growing at a rate that I can't even properly describe. But that's for those guys on the inside to know about that.
Yeah. And what are some things when you were looking to get it started, and did Craig James, am I getting the name correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when you and Craig were getting things started, what were kind of, I guess, pillars that you wanted to focus on when it came to being men, being leaders, being a brotherhood? Did you have certain things and certain requirements or non-negotiables where these will be the pillars of who we are and what this is?
Craig and I did, and it's evolved. So I'm going to go through what we had and what we currently have. I'm going to kind of blend them together because the answer here is going to help anybody that's looking to build a team or a network. And so, one, you had to be a man. Was a men's only group. So it was very easy for us to say, well, yeah, we're cutting our consumer base in half, but what are we doing? We're looking to help men. And so we made a clear decision who we're looking for. From there was no age or any limits like that. We weren't chasing an avatar. I'm going to go for 30s, married with kids, looking to be better. No.
Right.
If you're a man, you can get in. Doesn't matter age, doesn't matter anything else outside of being a man. And from there, authenticity was the number one message that I drive everywhere. Be you. You have to, if you join our group, you have to be yourself. And this is where I'm going to blend it with our current rules, is we have no anons. There are no anonymous accounts. You're not allowed to have a fake profile photo. You're not allowed to
Right.
hide. If you're not posting, we're reaching out. If we don't know who you are, what you're doing, we're reaching out to you because I'd rather less people in my group that I know than more people that I don't know. And so that's how we operate is be who you
Yeah.
are, have your name, all that. But outside of that, man, it really fell into what we're seeing with men. Mind, body, spirit, health, wealth, relationships. Very simple. Your mind has to be right, your body has to be right, and your soul has to be right. And then obviously you've got your health, not just literally your physical health here, but also just like the lifestyle that you're living. If you have addictions, if you have certain habits, whatever it is, so you have to address these things. Your wealth, make sure that you get your money straight. We have everything I listed: health, wealth, relationships, mind, body, spirit. We have a coach for all of those inside our walls. We have personal trainers, we have nutritionists, we have freaking lawyers, we have everybody you could think of. And our motto inside is we have a guy for that because we don't have apps. I'm not going to send you an app if you need help. I'm like, hey, Pat, come talk to this guy. And he's going to
Right.
help you with your thing. Like you've got a person. And these dudes
Yeah.
are more than happy to help to give back. But the pillars, it had to be focused on that. You had to focus on just all that makes you as a man. Because if we work on that, we can fix that. All those other things grow. So we have a fatherhood channel. A fatherhood call every week led by Anthony. And that's been going for like 4 years now. And people are always attending. Like we are always talking fatherhood. So when women say like, I want a man who's 6 feet tall, making six figures and has a six pack, we're helping you do that. But we're also throwing in and is a good father and is healed from all of his childhood trauma and doesn't
Right.
have any crazy secrets hiding. Like we're helping the men become the best men they can be. And in doing so, we are helping wives, we are helping women, we're helping children, we're helping society at large.
Yeah. That's powerful.
It's
Yeah, I
working, man.
imagine.
That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
it works, you know.
Yeah, and you have is it 160 members now in the fraternity? Is that
I think
correct?
we're floating around 140 right now. We had
140?
a purging.
Yeah. That's crazy though. It's crazy that I mean just what it must be like just in that having that brotherhood. Yeah, it's
I'll
probably
tell
just
you
one of
this,
those things
man.
that's
It's
so powerful.
the brotherhood is so strong, and I can't speak to that enough. But again, we've been doing this for over 6 years now, and looking at it, the thing that hits me the most is what we're doing right now. And so we've done great things for a long time, but what are we doing right now? We're still growing. We just last weekend had our first Fraternity of Excellence family event.
I saw that. I
So
wanted
we
to
had
ask you about
wives
that.
there, man.
That's so amazing.
Dude, wives, kids. My son was there. He got to see all these other men. Their spouses were there. One of the things, and I said this at the event, one of the things that really stood out to me, like hit me right in the heart, is in the military. I talk about this brotherhood and camaraderie. That's where we came from. Yeah, but what I skipped was in the military. If I snapped my fingers, a family would show up, like our for a cookout or for a football party, or whatever. All of our kids would be together. All of our
Right.
wives would be together. All the men would be together. We kind of like float apart at different phases of the house, and we'd all come together. And then we'd all float apart and have like cigars or hang out, come together, talk about work, come together. Like we would interweave with our women and with our children. And we were able to successfully do that with FOE. It was awesome.
Right. That's just so cool. Was that something that you guys have been maybe what you saw that was not lacking, but something that needed to be there, and that's why it was just such a strong emphasis to just get whether it's families, children, whoever, everyone there, and then all just hanging out together. Is that just something that, yeah, you guys just really wanted to have that?
Yeah, I mean, it was an inevitability again because it it was everything's headed towards this one thing. This one thing is excellence. That's why it's called Fraternity of Excellence. And in the process of getting to excellence, we have found, well, what could we do to be better? What can we do to be more excellent? How can we better deliver our message? And so
Yeah.
this was a part of that. Recognizing that the families had to know each other was a part of that. I would say for like 3 years now, it's been tossed around. The last year, it was really like, all right, we need to make this happen. And then one of our members, his name is Matt Winder, he took point on it. And he's like, hey man, like I want to run with this. I've got the perfect spot. I know where to go. I know how we can do it, and we can do it at a cost-effective level. So we can
Sweet.
do this in a way that's not going to break the bank because times are weird right now, and so people are not like choosing where do they want to spend their funds. We're
Yeah.
able to do this without breaking the bank. You see some retreats and it's $10,000. You see some retreats even $1,000. Which to me that's not an insane number, but at the same time that might not be something a family of 5 is willing to commit. You know,
Hmm.
and we were able to do this and just knock it out like I said, at an affordable level where family could get involved. They could all travel together, and we were able to do the thing we knew we should have done. But when you saw it play out, dude, it was better than we could have imagined. Like it was everything that we thought it would be,
Right.
and then some.
Now, and what are you guys doing like while you're all so in my head I'm picturing just awesome spot, maybe like barbecuing, grilling, playing sports, football, baseball, soccer, talks,
So
like
this
is
last
that
one,
am I on the right path here or
kind of. So you're on the right path, but we weren't able to do it all. And
right,
so if you dial all
fair
that
enough.
in,
Yeah,
the cigars were had, so the men were smoking cigars and having a good time, great discussions. We had meals together. One of our men, his name is Don Hickman. You should wake him or check him out. His Wake Up Call LLC on Twitter. Awesome dude.
definitely.
A great dude. Um, he brought he has Nerf nights. So he has family fun Friday family fun nights, and he goes out with his community. They have like these Nerf battles and have some fun with the kids. And so it's like paintball, but like kids can play. And
Right.
so he has like these huge Nerf things, and you're like, all right, what the hell are we talking about? Just think paintball with Nerf. And so
Yeah,
we set all these boxes up, and like we played with the kids. The adults played each other. It was a really good time. So we
that's
had
sweet.
that little battle going. A lot of we were playing volleyball, like I said. We had arts and crafts led by one of the moms. She was reading books. They had a movie night at one of the men's businesses. Dude, it was everything. And like I said, the wives would be together, then all the couples would be together, we'd all be together, and then just the men. And so it was very good. And especially my son and I, my wife and daughter had to stay home because she's the founder's wife. But dude, before we got on here, we're like, yeah, it's busy. Like, dude, our lives are busy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
when you were saying everything that you're involved in, my first thought was,
dude,
I can't believe this guy found an hour to talk to me. Holy.
it's very there are some days where we're high-fiving. Like last night, she had to bring our daughter to cheer, and I was bringing my son and I to go take photos at the football game, and it's like we
Right.
high-five on the way in and out, and we make time for each other at night, but, like,
Yeah.
during the day is difficult. And so she wasn't able to go to the family event, which she was not happy about. But it gave my son and I a reason, not really reason, it created an opportunity for us to just by ourselves go on a road trip, have some fun, meet all these men. My son got to meet the men that I've been speaking about for a long time, and
Right.
so
It's so
I'm there with
powerful.
him, dude. And like we're standing there, and I'm just like, I told him when we got there, I'm not going to offer you any top cover, and I'm not like, you're not here just as my son, you're your own man. And so like he's like feeling good, like shoulders back, like, all right, now good to
Yeah.
go. He was having in-depth conversations with these men. Because remember, in FOE, they've seen my son grow, but he hasn't seen them. And
Right.
so they're like, hey, Coda, it's nice to see you. I heard about baseball. How is everything going? All these things. And as his own man, he's out there speaking, standing tall, shaking hands, eye contact, all the things that you measure a man by, like body language. He had it locked
Right.
in. And I was so proud to see that because I'm like, this is, as we're talking,
What
men
a
needing
moment.
men, this
Yeah.
son is seeing these new role models. His heroes aren't going to be these fictitious characters. They're going to be the men he knows who run businesses, who are leading their families. Their mind, their body, their spirits are dialed in. These men are getting on my son's level and talking to him as I'm talking to you right now. That's the
Right.
level of respect they give. That's the level of respect they expect. And so seeing that play out, man, we did everything that the military does. And what I mean by that is my experience in the Navy and what I was missing, FOE hit all those boxes and then some.
Right. That must yeah, that must just be a crazy experience just for him, and then also for you just to almost watch. I mean, I've got 2 little boys. One's 2, one's 4, and then we don't know if it's a boy or girl, but one on the way. But I mean, they're babies in my eyes. They're like, I mean, the 4-year-olds, they're still young kids though. They're still very young. And I think it's Patrick Bet David who says like your sons go through 3 stages. He
Yep.
says first they idolize, then they demonize, and then they humanize. And those are kind of 3 stages that sons go through with their fathers. Now, I don't know if he's fully correct on it, but I can kind of see what he's getting at. But they're still just little kids in my eyes. I mean, they are little kids. They're 4. But for you, just looking at your son, a 14-year-old, shaking hands, looking people in the eyes, shoulders back. What was that moment like for you? Where was it a switch of, hey, like my boy is now he's a young man? Was there just a switch in your mind, or just seeing it, or was it something that you just known and then you were able to just sit back and just be super proud of him?
It's a good question because it really puts me in the uncomfortable seat. Who likes to talk about the kids growing up, man?
Oh
No,
man,
I really like it and I enjoy it. I enjoy the process entirely. It's one of those things where when you look at it, from the literal statement of I'm watching my son become his own man, there could be like an unspoken negative kind of air behind that. Like, oh, he's becoming his own, he's going out, he's independent, doesn't need you. Dude, I could not be more proud. And it
right?
wasn't a surprise to me at all. I know who he is. I treat him in our home like he's his own man. And I would say to a degree, this is why other fathers need friends. They need men they can connect with. And I'm not even putting that from the position of, hey, check out FOE. I'm pitching
Yeah,
this as like literally your church. You need just friends. You need men around you. Because look at the opportunity I had to see my son becoming his own man. That's only possible when my son is no longer just inside this home with me or with his friends. I got to see him with my friends and how he carries himself.
right.
And so if dads don't have that, you never get to see that. If you don't get to see that, how are you going to know it? Like, where is the opportunity for that data point on his rite of passage to manhood? Where's that going to be found? You have to expose him to other men. But how can you expose your son to the masculine network, the hierarchy that you're a part of, if you're not a part of it? And how
Hmm.
can you expect your son to have friends and to grow and find good people around him if you stop doing the same because you thought that getting married, having kids was the finish line? And so when I see it,
Right.
dude, I know my son. Like I see him every day. I speak to him every day. He's a free individual who kind of just like lives in my home, and we get along very well. And we have a good relationship,
Yeah.
and he eats all my food. He's always trying
Yeah.
to grab my protein. So there are things that we've got to figure out and some boundaries there.
Yeah.
But he's an individual that's growing up, and we're learning to grow together. And I would say that seeing him there at that event, and like you said, those three phases. I told my wife. we've already gone through those. And so at
Right.
14, like we've already gone through. I was his hero. I'm Superman. And then there was a time where like him and I were butting heads, and I couldn't figure it out, but I also couldn't back down, and he wouldn't back down, and I didn't want him
Right.
to. Like the battles
Yeah.
we had is like you need to speak your truth, and it's not going to align with mine all the time. But after that, now he sees me as the man that I am. I shared, dude, I can't like who I am. Everything that I am, I've shared with that kid, and
Hmm.
why I am the way I am. He knows more about me than almost anybody but my wife because I
Right.
talked to him. He asked very good questions about. Uh, let's talk about the road trip to Charlotte and from Charlotte. During that time, we listened to Andy Frisella's Real AF podcast,
Right.
and we're talking about Israel. We're talking about God. We're talking about politics. We're talking about health, wealth. We're talking about all these things. This 14-year-old is asking me the questions that would make you and I very uncomfortable if we were to be asking each other right now. Like the
Right.
one he's like, "Oh, exactly how much money did you make in the past 3 weeks? Hey, what happened exactly? Tell me what happens when you die." Okay, Dad, why don't you drink alcohol when all these other dads do? And I'm sitting like I've got nowhere to go, and I'm not
Yeah.
like squirming in my seat, man. But it's one of those things like these are not comfortable things. But if you learn those answers to me, you know me better. And so I want my son to know me the absolute best. And so I answer. But then I ask him similar questions. I'm like, so what's your choice here? What are you thinking about doing there? What's influencing you to make the choices that you make? And so we're learning about, I mean, each other obviously, but how each other are operating and navigating this world that we're in. And dude, you likely haven't really seen the full nature of it, but as your boys grow, and you said you've got a little lady on the way.
We're not sure. Still,
All
still
right, so
early on,
a
but just a little
potential
one.
little lady on the way.
Potential little lady.
You'll
Yeah.
see, man, the world they're living in is so unique to our own, but not even in the sense of like our parents would say to us, our grandparents, like, oh, the world has changed. Like, yeah, obviously the world's changed. Like, we have pronouns and things like whatever. I'm not talking about that. You're parenting your kid differently than you were parented, and you're going to see your child operate differently than you operated. And
Right.
I did not grow up in the atmosphere my son's being raised in. And so I don't know my son because he's not doing anything I did the way I did it
Right.
outside of like the core pillars. And so it's almost like I'm watching a whole new child. At 14, I wasn't doing half the shit he's doing. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't. And so but he had the environment because I made fatherhood a priority. And so that's a very long way to answer the question of yes, I was very proud of my son for attending
Yeah.
the event. And it was very
There you
cool.
go.
Shout out to all the FW men, who shook his hand and gave him the time of day.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. I'm just thinking back to, I mean, I'm very, I always say like very blessed, very fortunate. Really, it was just my parents made a lot of sacrifices for me and my siblings. So we I guess my parents growing up, they just defied, all the cultural norms. They had a big family. So there's seven of us. I have five sisters and a brother. And what was really cool was my dad's best man they were each other's best men. So they live in the same town that we live in right now, up in Canada actually. But so they also did something similar. So there's eight kids in that family, and just growing up, it was always we just always grew up together. There was always a bigger community, and then people just slowly moved in. And like you said, right, you need some pillars. So church was definitely the big one for us, where people move in, big Catholic families, and there's just such an awesome community. It's strange though growing up with someone for that long. So some of that other family, I mean, I'm 30 now, and it's no lie to say, like my whole life I've had though that other family in my life. Like there's a brother older than me, there's one the same age, there's a one younger, there's my brother. So I've known them, from 0 to 30, right? But what's funny is the relationship with the parents, because you're a 6-year-old and you're over playing with your friends, and then there's that person's dad, and then it's slowly as you grow up, there's a transition of, okay, I'm your son's friend, and I'm just a kid now, I'm a teenager, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, we're both men, and it just becomes a weird phenomenon. And still talking to my buddy's dad, I'll still shake his hand, call him by his first name, he says the same thing, and then we have a conversation, and in my head I always think, hey, this is the way men talk, but I shouldn't. I'm almost like I'm not worthy to be talking to you as an adult. But it's such a strange thing to grow up with someone and then realize that, you know what, we're all not equals, but we're all men and we talk the way men do. And it's going to be, I'm really excited just the way you expressed there, just to watch my kids grow up and see that transition from child to young men to then men, adults, and see what it's going to be like and see how they interact with, my friends who their children are going to be in their lives and they're always, so I'm just really excited for that. Basically, I'm excited for, I think you said your son was 14, so 10 years from now being able to watch that and to witness that and be proud the same way that you are of your son. I'm really excited for that.
The complexity of it grows, but so does the appreciation of it. You
Right.
know, and so like the relationship we have now at 14 is different than when he was 4, but
Of
in such
course.
better ways. It's so much more intimate. Like you,
Yeah.
such deeper thoughts in his world and coming from my mind, like as well. And they're just meeting up. It's a great thing. And people who say like, "Oh, the terrible twos," "Oh, when they're teenagers," "Oh, whoa, the 16," "Oh, well, when they're," it's always like, just wait until it gets worse, dude. I'm telling you right now, they're all wrong. It only gets better so long as
Yeah.
you're honest in the relationship. If you treat your kids like somebody that you like, they're going to treat you like somebody they like. They're going to like to be around you. And so the
Yeah.
way that I see it, is our job as fathers is to just lead these lives and be honest about it and kind of just like do our best and let them know who we are along the way. It's not difficult. People make it very complicated. And to the point, the relationship you have with that other man, that's a very intimate one. I mean, your whole life you've known this family. They've watched you become a man. It's interesting when you see that play out because you find yourself in that position. You're like, oh, this we are men now. Like
Hmm.
there's no like day. It's not like, oh, you're 18, you're a man. It's like something inside of you changes, and you're just standing tall and you're speaking to him, or you're confronting him. I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, I wasn't a man until I was able to tell that other older man that I have listened to forever no, and
Right.
that's when I knew I was on my own ground and
Yeah.
I'm making my decisions for my life.
Yeah.
And that could happen at 30. That could happen at 40. There have been men who joined FOE who had no confrontational bones in their body. They were almost a boy their whole life because nobody ever gave them permission. Nobody ever told them it was time to man up, or the path they chose was not a very masculine one. It was very like passive and letting the world happen to them, even from their spouse and kids, and never
Hmm.
kind of like injecting themselves into the conversation to where they could control what's happening in their own life. And so, like to me, manhood is not a number. I look at my son now. I would say he's damn close. Like
Yeah.
he's so close. It's not going to be an 18 thing. It might be like a 15 or 16 thing. Maybe when he
Yeah.
has his own car, like his own job, that's those milestones, his own money to go do things like. But as far as being a man, we're knocking on that door.
Yeah. That's so cool. That there was something you said, even just going back to, oh, terrible twos, and then wait till they're a teenager, and then they're 16. It's something that I don't have. There aren't many things. I try to almost be a stoic when it comes to what other people do and not let myself be reactionary to maybe their mindsets, I'm going to say, whether it's, a passive or a victim mentality. But when I always hear people, you know, talking about, oh, this is bad now, but wait until the future, it's even worse. It's one of those things. It just makes me sick. I worked a job. Thankfully, I've been able to go out and start my own. But I was in a job where it would be Monday morning would show up, and everyone would complain because it was Monday for no other reason other than the fact that because society says Mondays are a bad day. And I found myself falling into it. And then one day I said, this is so dumb. Like, why am I complaining that it's a Monday? It's literally just another day. It's not that the work is worse on a Monday. It's not that the people are any worse. It's the exact same. It's just, well, it's basically that everyone hates their job and no one wants to be there is essentially what it is. And then it would be Tuesday would come around and people would count it down till Friday and like 3 more days till Friday, and it's just one of those mentalities. I just said to myself, I'm going to stop complaining about this. And it totally changed. And then you see other people saying, like, well, at least it's Friday, right? It's a good day, or it's Monday, it's a bad day, right? The terrible twos, they're bad. Wait till they get 16. And now I almost have these like, no, life is good. I'm excited for when they're 16, but it just makes me sick to hear people say that because I mean, you speak things into existence, and if you're wishing if you're say it's a terrible day because it's a Monday, it probably will be a terrible day. And if you're saying that the terrible twos are real, then they probably are going to be real for you. If you say when your kids are 16, they're going to be a pain, when your kids are 16, you're probably going to think that they're a pain. And it's just one of those things I have no patience for. And I've always got to check my tongue depending on who I'm talking to, not to get too
Well, it's
fired
not
up
that,
from it.
man. No, I definitely I find myself I can't help it. It's just like I have a thought, the words come out. Like I
Right.
even in environments like it's like I create my own conflict, and I'm like I can't help getting my own way sometimes. But it's just like I
Yeah.
can't also not talk. It's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm very good at debate, and I can talk my way into and out of a lot of things. And so
Right.
I usually win the arguments I find myself getting into caused by me.
Yeah.
But looking at that, it's like you have to, man. Like that's why you're doing this podcast. You're not doing this podcast for people not to listen to you. You wouldn't
Yeah.
start this and start like I would hope you're not having me on here to not post this or have a discussion on this
Oh
or like
no. Yeah.
actually apply this. It's like, oh, this is like my little secret stash because I don't want people to get
Yeah.
mad that we spoke about fatherhood.
No.
Like
No.
there's a right way to parent, there's a wrong way to parent, and then there's other ways to parent. And the way I look at this, man, if I treated our relationship like, oh, just wait until the second time you podcast with Pat and it's going to be freaking terrible. He
Yeah.
choked on the second one. Dude, you'd be like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
It's like, why are you waiting for your kids to be bad people? Why do you think that that's what's going to happen? It's the same thing as when people say, oh, your relationship with your girlfriend is great. Wait until marriage. That's when it's
Right.
all
I hate
over.
it.
Wait
Yeah.
until kids, then it's all over. What are you talking about? I can't wait to marry this woman and create these babies. We're going to create a wonderful life, right? And that's going to be filled with love, physical attraction, romance, all the things that you're saying that are going to die. That's going to bloom. Oh, wait until your kids turn teens so I can do more with them. My son can go to Planet Fitness with me now. He can be a legit black card guest. You know how pumped he is about that?
Yeah.
Going to the gym, doing obstacle course races. He can now do the adult ones. Dude, his aging has been the best thing because now we just have more things we can go do. And I told you, if something goes bump at night, my son might be the one running out after it. I call myself a silverback gorilla. That's my spirit animal. Like I love gorillas. And I explained to my wife, we're at the point now. It's like 2 gorillas are in this house. I've got another man I can rely on for a lot of things. He does a lot of landscaping with me. He does a lot of when we have to repair things. He does that with me. It's no longer sit there and hold the flashlight. Like he's actually
Hmm.
helping me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with you, if you're looking at the relationship with your wife and you're like, oh, just wait until this happens and then it's going to be trash. Well, yeah, you think she's a person who's going to be trash soon. You can't look
Hmm.
at those little bodies and be like, oh, when you guys grow up, you're going to be assholes. I can't wait for that to happen. Like, why would you think that? Why would you put your kid in a track to where they're going to be somebody you don't like? Dude, my son said something, and I think this would be good advice for anybody listening to this. He was talking to another FW man. He did not know I was eavesdropping, but I'm like proud of him. So I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Sitting there listening next to him.
Yeah.
And the guy said something about, oh, you speak very well for 14. And he's like, listen, my dad, since I could talk, I've had to speak for myself. He's like, I had to order my own food. I had to ask the barber for my own haircut. When other adults would ask questions, he would not answer them. He would look at me. And it's real. If you came to my house like, hey, how's Coda doing with baseball? I'd be like, oh no, he's good. If you were talking to me and Coda, hey, how's Coda doing? Ask him. He's right
Yeah.
here. Like I give him that level of respect in the same way I would with you. And so that's why I'm watching that relationship grow. But when he said that, I realized the freedom we give our kids in their youth to kind of speak up and be their own selves, that allows them to sort of develop that skill set. So when they're old, like so 14, 16, all these milestones we're talking about, you've already gotten to know them. You already their motivations, their fears. You've learned who they are. They know they have the freedom to express themselves. You're not going to have that rebellious, confrontational crap that you see in most families. But those families are filled with, do it this way because I said so.
Yeah.
I'm the dad. Well, that's why your kids flashing out at those ages. You've treated them like they're these things that you own, like a dog or something. They're human beings that we just are privileged to raise and lead through life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
Dude,
Even
it's 9:43 in the morning. You've got me worked up.
yes, I'm sorry, man. You're gonna be
That's
fired
good. I
up all
love it.
day from this. Yeah, and I just remember when I was engaged, there was so many comments of, "Well, your life is over now," or 6 months until your life ends. And I remember just thinking, so just feeling sorry for each one of the people that said that. And I know sometimes people say it just because everybody says it, and it's there are people out there that just they don't mean it, they just regurgitate it. But at the same time, it just what you speak, it slowly sinks into your life. And whether it's mediocrity or whether it's complaining, victim mentality, it slowly sneaks in there. And I remember just feeling sorry for each one of those people. And now with kids, right? 2-year old, 4-year old, we'll be out in public and, they'll act up or whatever. And somebody will make a comment. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they'll be negative. But the negative ones, I'm always just in my head, I'm like, I feel so sorry for that person. Whether maybe they didn't have this in their life, maybe they weren't able to have kids, or who knows. But just seeing, two little boys playing, and whether it's at church, right? Sunday at church, it's an hour. They're supposed to be quiet. So usually they don't end up being quiet. And right, just but seeing two little boys and saying, they're two terrors or something. It's like, no, they're not. Like they're two little boys and they're playing like the way that they should be. Sure, are they
Mhm.
wrestling on Sunday and maybe it's a little distracting at times, but yeah, of course, man. They're like two bear cubs that we're trying to, bring them into this atmosphere. But just yeah, feeling so sorry for people that think like that. The victim mentality, the always complaining. It's crazy how it can seep in, and even if someone is just saying it and not meaning it, it still just seeps in, and that mediocrity just it sinks into every part of their life, and it's just one of the things
Well,
that I just can't stand.
yeah, I mean, words have power. There's a reason you can read a book with black squiggly lines written on a page and you feel something in your soul. Like there's
Hmm.
power in that. Your body will read words. It's crazy when you really think about what we're doing. Even now, the vibrations from my throat are making you think a certain way. You're changing your brain chemistry because of what I'm saying and vice versa.
Yeah.
And so what you think, happy wife, happy life, or I hate my life, or the world hates me, or everybody's out to get me. You speak that enough times and you believe it, dude, you're like creating this cycle. You're creating this reality that's warped and twisted. It's like if you were looking right now and I put glasses on you that you didn't need and everything got blurry, you're not, the world is still what it is. And from your view, it's all jacked up though. The
Yeah.
world is still doing its thing. It's still crystal clear, but for you, it's jacked up. People, when they say these things, they're jacking up their vision. They're like,
Hmm.
they're looking for what's wrong. Everything is like, there's a reason behind it instead of like, you're getting, I know when I get in my own way because I'm very objective about it. Like, yeah, I screwed up. Like whatever. I'll fix it. The world didn't do this to me. I did this to me. I made the choices that got here. I am my problem. I'm also my solution. So let me fix this thing that I caused and go somewhere I want to go. You know, and that goes for our relationships as well. And that's why it's so important we let our kids be kids. The people who will say, what the hell? You gotta, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. If you're not hitting your kids, if you're not
Yeah.
controlling them and keeping them disciplined and doing these things, then they're gonna run amok and they're not gonna respect you. I was like, dude, if you act like a tyrant, they're not gonna respect you. They're gonna break away from this because they don't want to be controlled like that. If I
Hmm.
saw your kids doing like WWE on a Sunday, I'd be like, look at those kids having fun. That's
Yeah.
awesome. They're not going to understand this message, even if they were to sit perfectly and listen to it. They're just going
Yeah.
to be little robots sitting and listening because they were told to be seen and not heard. And
Yeah.
that's not childhood, man. Kids want to play, they want to run, so give them the freedom to do that. The
Yeah.
world is going to be hard enough. I don't punish my kids. There's natural consequences that the world is going to bring to them. If you lie
Hmm.
and something happens, guess what? You're going to get hit. And not literally physically hit, but you're going to, like, the world's going to smack you with something for lying.
It always comes back. Yeah. It
Yeah.
never you never get away with something. It always comes back to you.
So why do we feel like we need to like hyper control all this as if our kids are going to become these nutcases if we're not, being too heavy on them? And
Hmm.
these same people who tell their kids, do what I say because I said so, are the exact people who on the other side of their head are going to say, why don't people stand up for themselves and defend themselves and, do what's right? Well, because they were told not to, and you told them to do what they were told. But now you want them to speak against authority. It's crazy. The dots, like the rabbit holes you can fall into are so deep. It's like Alice
Yeah.
in Wonderland, man. You fall into like a whole nother world when you
Yeah.
see what childhood trauma does to adults and how uh, the the duality, I guess, the dichotomy of what's going on in their head. They can't see that they are living a life that is opposite of what they're saying people should do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. How does that change for you? So you've got a 14-year-old son. You have two kids. Do you have a younger son, younger daughter?
Daughter, my daughter's 11.
How does that change for you with your daughter? Does it scare you more? I don't have a daughter. I've got two sons. Like I said, one on the way. I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. But if it's a daughter, I mean, I'm probably pretty freaked out at that point. But
Why?
does that I guess I don't know. Different, I guess. new, different.
See, so you just said something, but you don't know why you said it. Why does it freak you out?
Yeah, you're right. That's a fair point. Got me. Shit.
No, that's
No.
good. That's good. And so I'll say this: I always wanted a daughter, and
Right.
I understand. So here's a live version of what we were just talking about. You said it, but you know what's going to happen if you have a daughter? You're going to be super pumped up, man. You're going to be
Yeah.
fired up to have a little ladies to lead. You're not going to be freaked out at all, and you're going to do your thing. And you're going to find out extremely quickly that raising a daughter is like raising a son. They're just a different gender.
Right.
They're the same thing. They're their own person because your
Yeah.
sons aren't you. They're their own men. And so what you're doing is leading two individual lives, and this will be a third. Boy or girl, it makes no difference. Boy or girl, they're going to have to develop their confidence. Boy or girl, they're going to have to express themselves with freedom. It doesn't matter what their gender is at all. And so, because you and I have never been girls, you would think, and again, this is me saying I understand why you said it. Because they're a girl, we've never done that. You and I have been boys. We've been sons. We know what it is to be a
Yeah.
man in the world.
There's just that unknown of, well, when my kid is this age, I'll maybe have an idea of what, when my son's this age, I'll have an idea of what he's thinking or,
But you
oh,
won't
well, that's a fair point.
you're a
Yeah.
totally different father than what they
Yeah.
had. The environment's totally different. The world's different, and so that's the point. When I say like they're in their own world, you I thought I would know what my son was going through, dude. I have no idea. This is a whole new world for me,
Yeah,
and it's
definitely.
wonderful. I love it. And so with my daughter, it's the same, dude. She is so unique in her own way, and I'm very privileged to be the one raising her because it's so foreign to how I think and operate, and I love it. It's made me a better man because she'll stop and notice a butterfly I didn't even know existed. She'll stop and see all these like she's a
Yeah.
total girl's girl, but even if she was a tomboy, like the way that she thinks is so unique and kind of special to her that it's you have two boys, and I bet you would say that they're different. Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I'm assuming
it's
they're different.
crazy. It's
So
so
having a
crazy to
girl,
see the difference.
it's
Yeah.
just a different person, man. But I
Yeah.
will say that there are certain traits to girls that are different than boys that we might not be well versed in. But dude,
Mhm.
that's a part of the joy of parenting is learning these things and getting to know our kids. And for girls, having them show a side of the world that we might not have noticed when we were boys.
Yeah.
But nothing to be freaked out about.
Yeah. No, all right. All right, that's good. That's good. I like how you caught me in that. Right after I was saying that about other people.
I see what I mean when I say like I can't help it. Like
It's
we're on a
true, but
podcast recording, and I'm like, hey man, you said the thing that you said you weren't gonna say.
it is funny how you just maybe you just hear something, and I mean, you call me out like I fully said it because without knowing why. Essentially, it's an unknown, I would say, but I probably it's just I've heard people say that before. I've heard dads, men say, "Oh, raising a girl would scare me," and then you're just repeating the fact. But it is just crazy. I mean, before kids, you always just look at the parent, and then you look at the child, and you think, "Oh, you must have done something differently for the first one and the second one because they're so different." But having my own kids, like the 4-year-old is he's so quiet, takes so long to process things, and if it's a new activity, like he'll just sit and he'll watch it for 45 minutes to an hour, and he won't say a word. And then whatever the activity is, won't take part. He'll just watch, but his eyes are locked in. And then an hour goes by, and he'll be able to tell you like what was happening, who was going on. He'll be able to go through the whole process. He'll do it on his own afterwards. Like his eyes are just locked in. And the 2-year-old is just total opposite. He's the first one to jump into things. He's tackling kids. He'll be running around, not paying attention. Right? They're just polar opposites, and it's so crazy to watch because I haven't done anything differently for them. Sure, one's the older brother, one's the younger brother, but their personalities are polar opposites, and it's so wild just to watch and say like they're both brothers, they both came from my wife and I, but they are two totally different human beings, as almost as opposite as you could get when it comes to just being loud, being crazy, one super quiet, diving into things, not wanting to try anything new, but just laser focused on everything that's going on. It's crazy to watch. It's crazy to watch how different they are.
What I like about that too is it forces you to really develop. So let me share a little insight into what goes on in my head when I have these discussions. You know, I'm thinking about how you are now forced to be an even better leader than if they were the same. You are
Yeah,
forced to learn how to
absolutely.
interact with two totally different. If they were the exact same, you only have to be one guy. That one guy can control, like both of these guys. You can control like the environment, the atmosphere. Like you know what's needed, what's not needed. You can help set them up for success with using the same template. To set your sons up for success, you need two totally different templates.
Yeah.
How you talk to them, how you engage them, the activities that you do, the way that they respond to things. Your skill set as a dad is so much broader, which is a great thing. It's more challenging for sure, but what else are you gonna do with your life, man? Like you're gonna try to be comfortable all the time. Like it's good that you're
Yeah.
being challenged, and as they grow, it's not that they're gonna divide further, but as they grow, it's gonna be more like the contrast is gonna be so much more clear because they're doing bigger things and more things. It's less
Hmm.
blocks and small sports. It's like bigger decisions, life decisions, careers, things like that, and you're going to find yourself having to give guidance to two totally different men. That's awesome. That's a
Yeah.
great experience for you. And like I said, with the daughter, my daughter's the second one, so it's very unique having a boy than a girl because I can't tell you. Maybe I got better as a parent from the first to the second one because your 4-year-old and my 14-year-old, they're the oldest child we have ever raised. Every single day is a new PR.
Right.
It's our first kid, so we're learning with them. The second one, we had an idea, so we're like, all right, so here's how sleep schedules, I guess, work and don't work because we tried on the
Right.
first one.
Exactly.
Here's the gifts to get, not get, the foods to get, to not get, the things that to treat or address and to not treat or address. The second one, you kind of have it polished. So I can't tell you. My daughter is very similar to my son, also very different, and so the differences are obviously the ones that stand out more because when it's the same, I know how that works. But when they're different, I realized, is that because she's a girl? Or is that because I was better as a parent that changed the way that she was brought up? But one of the
Hmm.
things that I explained to my son, and I think you should explain to your oldest at some point, is acknowledging that, is telling them that. Like when the third baby comes in and maybe it's like, oh, well, you didn't do that with me, or how come they get to do that? It's, I didn't know better. I'm learning with
Right.
you. And so I've told
Yeah.
my son multiple times, I'm like, yeah, bud, with you, we did this, but with my daughter's name's Ava. With Ava, we did that. And we tested this, we realized you didn't like this, but we didn't know until it happened. Now we
Right.
knew it, so we just skipped falling into that hole. And so I've told my son, like, give me grace, when we go through these things, just understand I might make a mistake because I've never raised somebody your age before. I've never done
Yeah.
anything like this before. And during this car ride, I was like, I've never spoken to a son about these things before. And it was about Israel and all the things that were going on. And so I told him straight up, I'm like, buddy, you're going to hear these things, if not from me, from someone else. I don't have a fatherhood handbook. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be honest with you. And I don't know if that's the right thing right now, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. And it's like, you can do with it what you want. And just let me know if you have any like issues. He was asking like, how can people do this to each other? And it was
Right.
a very uncomfortable conversation. And
Oh
I
yeah.
told him the real, like my understandings and like what was really happening to people. And it's not good to talk about death, man. It's not good to talk about destruction with your child. But when they're asking the questions, it's like we're now at that point, it's like a new hurdle to clear together. And I didn't have a template. I couldn't be like, hey Pat, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like he'd
Exactly.
be like, hey
Yeah.
man, I got a 4-year-old. You tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So
What am I
looking
supposed to
at
do?
that,
Yeah.
it's sometimes you wing it. And after that conversation, maybe he comes back and he says, oh, I wish you had told me that earlier or helped explain that better. I will then be able to tell my daughter earlier or better the
Right.
conversation that him and I had.
Hmm. Yeah. I just love the openness of, again, I always think back to Patrick Bet David's, just those three stages, and the final one is he says humanize, where the children just realize that their parents are humans. They're not God, they're not these supreme beings, they're humans. And he said that's the final stage, but he also says the beauty of that stage is that that's when the relationship becomes the closest, where it's you're not idolized by your children like you are when they're 2, 3, 4. He's like they don't they don't only see your flaws, but they see you as a human, and that's when they realize this person is so similar, not similar as in like personality or how they act, but in the same stage as we're humans, and just figuring it out. And it's just really cool that you're able to do that with your son. I mean that's so powerful.
One of the ways, and your military guys will catch this, when I went through boot camp and then A school, you pretty much like revere officers. I was enlisted. And so it's like they are gods. What they say go is like they have the nice uniforms, they're the officers, they're in charge. And I remember we were on the ship, we were doing whatever, and one of the officers' wives flew in, and we might have been in Italy. And we're walking down the street, we see them sitting and eating, and he's like, "Oh, come on over, and, have an espresso or whatever." So we sat down and had a coffee, and I remember in that moment thinking, "This is just a dude. This is
Yeah.
just a man who like had a degree and joined the Navy too. He's just a man. Like him and I are exactly here to here. He just gets paid more than me and has like more
Yeah.
responsibilities." That blew my mind, dude. That when that
Yeah.
really clicked, because obviously they brainwash you a little bit to like follow
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah.
But
For
outside
sure.
of that part of it, I think being able to be open and have your kids see you for who you are, it's so liberating for them as well. To be like, yeah, like I don't have to be perfect. If I make a mistake, I'm not a bad kid because my dad makes mistakes. He's an adult, and you
Hmm.
kind of set the picture to like when I grow up, I don't have to have X, Y, Z. Like I grow up, I'm free to choose what I want to do. Like because my dad made his choices, I don't have to make the choices he made. And also,
Right.
if your kid grows up and he makes a financial error, gains some weight, he makes a mistake in a relationship, whatever. He doesn't hate himself because he's like, yeah, my dad told me about this, about
Yeah.
how he made a financial error and then he fixed himself, how he let his weight slide and then he fixed himself. Whatever you can think of, how he got fired from a job or he was
Yeah.
laid off, he wasn't prepared, how he didn't get depressed.
Yeah.
If you share that with your kids, they're prepared for that when it happens in their life, and it might be something small. They might get fired from McDonald's like I did. They might find themselves
Yeah.
like having these micro issues. And they know how to deal with it because you've shared the issues you've had. And to me, like you were just saying, they see the real you. They don't
Hmm.
they don't have to have this like on this pedestal. It's like, no, that's a man. I can be just like him. I can be strong too, my own way. I can be confident too, my own way. And someday they hear a podcast like this, they're like, yo, my dad did this because he was working on himself. He was talking to other people about it. I need to surround myself with good people I can work with and talk to about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, Zach, I won't take up any more time, dude. This is just so awesome. I really appreciate. We went over the hour mark, but I just really appreciate you sharing. I mean, it was just super cool talking to you. I just love again when I'll see whether it's like a Twitter post or it's just it's so real, just the way you're like sharing it. And I was like, man, I just got to talk to this guy because this is gonna be so cool. So yeah, thanks so much for this, Zach. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. But I mean, the thing that really stands out is we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, I mean
Like there's
that's
so much to talk about and like there's so many things to get into. And I was just thinking, I was like, oh well, we didn't talk about this, this, or this. And I was like, man, this so we'll have to have another one. Either I can get you on to the Daily Draft
a
podcast or I'll
hundred
come back
percent,
on. But it's a
a
good
hundred
discussion
percent.
when I just checked the time, like, oh, we did go over an hour. Like when you're
Yeah,
talking about things interesting and just kind of actually matter, time
it's
flies,
yeah, it's
like it's
crazy.
crazy how quick it goes.
It is crazy. All right, man. I just really appreciate it.